This is the anime video, right? Until someone starts paying me to make these, I'm just gonna keep plugging Canopy, one of my favorite streaming services, where you can watch a lot of the films mentioned in this video and more for free with a library card. Now back to it. So, full disclosure, I've only been a regular consumer of anime since the pandemic. I may have realized some things about myself with earlier exposure. However, it's quickly become one of my favorite genres, if you can call it that, along with Japanese cinema in general. And like many, my gateway drug was the inimitable Studio Ghibli. I mean, they're the Disney of Japanese animation for a reason, making beautifully imaginative films with endearing characters, relatable stories. Plus, it doesn't hurt when God himself runs the place. So why make this video? Well, you got me. There's already more than enough material here to end war, climate change, poverty, and sustain humanity for generations. If you're like me, however, and find yourself wanting to expand your horizons beyond a single animation studio, or maybe you're new to anime in general and just looking for a primer, I think you'll find this useful. So before we get started, let's quickly reiterate that Studio Ghibli has its worldwide reputation for a reason, and there's no shame in just watching their movies on repeat. And if you haven't already, like, what are you doing? They've established a pretty unique brand of animation that will not be copied exactly by anybody on this list. Ghibli movies range from full-on fantasy to grounded in reality, and are usually some mix of the two. And if I'm being honest, I don't usually go for a lot of fantasy. Don't get me wrong, I love Spirited Away. Top 5 for sure. But my personal preference is to lean more into the realistic than the fantastical. That said, I think that's where many of the films I'm about to mention live on the spectrum, often set in real places with imaginative elements sprinkled throughout for perspective and depth. Okay, intro over. You see these guys? For the next 7 minutes, forget them. They're dead to us. And without further ado, in no particular order, let's reinforce some stereotypes about anime watchers. Okay, I lied about going in no particular order. I specifically wanted to mention Satoshi Kon first to emphasize his place in anime history. Kon had a relatively brief career, only releasing 4 feature films over the course of a decade, before passing away from pancreatic cancer at age 46. But in that time, his influence became widespread, as he even seemed to directly inspire some popular American filmmakers. Kon's films are definitely adult-oriented, with a lot of high-concept, non-linear storytelling, and featuring mature, dark, sometimes uncomfortable themes. Not that Ghibli hasn't gone this route before, but it's a departure from their typical family-friendly fare. Kon is best known for his mind-bending thrillers like Perfect Blue and Paprika, which have had the furthest reach with Western audiences. But I want to take a moment to highlight one of his more understated films, Tokyo Godfathers. A Christmas movie. It's November, come on. Because of how it balances both heavy and light tones, effortlessly drifting between them. It explores a world that society tries to hide, breathing a depth of humanity into its characters. I would die for Hana and Miyuki.
いい句できたわ。幼子の頬に粉雪、清しこの夜。
I've mentioned Ozu on this channel before, who's known to have worked with actress Setsuko Hara on the thematically related Noriko trilogy. After learning a bit about these film legends, Kon's 2001 Millennium actress can be viewed in a whole new light. The non-linear storytelling is engaging, and the emotional impact of the on-screen running rivals that of Tom Cruise. Entertain the Elk actually has a great video on this topic. Also, shout out Breadsword's series on Satoshi Kon. It's fantastic. Now onto something only slightly less depressing. A lot of people's first stop after Studio Ghibli is the films of Makoto Shinkai, as they've been breaking box office records that were previously held by the industry giant. You can often tell you're watching a Shinkai joint by his signature style. A lot of great, shallow focus.
This shit right here.
And most notably, low-angle shots of character silhouettes against a nebulous sky.
The magic of animation.
But aside from his use of bylighting, Shinkai's films often featured teenage protagonists with a romantic element, something that Miyazaki famously avoids. His most popular films are what I like to refer to as the Natural Disasters trilogy. Again, not one story over 3 movies, just 3 thematically linked independent stories. Comets, earthquakes, tsunamis, real events that the people of Japan are all too familiar with. Shinkai's films are often praised as being a means for national grieving. The most critically acclaimed of these, Kimi no Nawa, is the first in the unofficial trilogy, and is best watched knowing as little as possible going in. Trust me. The anime community may crucify me for this, but the middle film, Weathering with You, might be my favorite. I don't know, I'm just different, I guess. The original title, Tenki no Ko, could be more literally translated as Weather Children. Oh, and Suzume is also great. I like them all very similar amounts really, and the soundtracks are always killer. Naoko Yamada is the relative newcomer of the batch, and also the only woman on this list. Is that on me, or the industry? Let's blame the industry. She's done a lot of work in anime TV, which I've heard great things about and still need to check out, and started directing feature films in the 2010s. Most notably, 2016's Koe no Kata is a never-ending sob fest about clinically depressed teenagers who they're not bad kids, they're just having a bad time, okay? And as beautiful as A Silent Voice is, I personally think it's topped by her follow-up, Rizu to Aoi Tori. This movie's so tactile. Every sound, every texture, every movement. You feel it with all your senses. Oh, it's so gay! When asked about the inclusive themes in her work, such as focusing on characters with disabilities and LGBTQ+ characters, Naoko has said, "I don't set out to specifically feature LGBTQ+ themes. It's natural that if I'm trying to show characters' thoughts and feelings, that I want that to be a natural part of it. So I don't want to avoid these things or give them special treatment, but depict LGBTQ+ characters as a natural course." Some of the most fun and expressive animation can be found in the work of Masaaki Yuasa, perhaps best known for adapting author Tomohiko Morimi's books, Tatami Galaxy and Night is Short, Walk On Girl. Yuasa is one of the more avant-garde and experimental filmmakers on this list. If you've got a quirky reputation to uphold, you're gonna want to pay attention. And nowhere is this better on display than A Long Day's Journey into Night. I mean, a girl walks home alone at night. I mean, Night is Short, Walk On Girl. This film is a total vibe. As our two protagonists journey to find one another, they encounter a colorful cast of characters while exploring the vibrant nightlife surrounding Kyoto Daigaku. The shapes and colors Yuasa employs throughout will keep your attention and give you a quasi-psychedelic experience like no other. Highly recommend. I'll also mention Inuo, literally Dog King, with a soundtrack that goes equally as hard as its title, in one of the greatest 12th century gender-fluid rock operas you'll ever see.
夏希先輩、僕でよければ。
本当？
おい、こっちどうすんだよ。
すいません、やっぱ無理です。
ダメか。バイトといっても私と一緒に田舎に旅行してくれるだけなんだけどな。
はい、俺やります。
え、何それ？じゃあ、僕もはい。
Furries, this one's for you. Mamoru Hosoda is the only director I wasn't previously familiar with when starting this list, so naturally I binged a bunch of his movies. For research purposes, Hosoda's characters live in the real world, and whatever high concept they're working with lives in the construct from the Matrix. This guy has 2 calling cards: characters moving between planes of existence and hot, single beasts in your area. Some people don't like a filmmaker that does the same thing over and over again. But hey, if it's good enough for Otsu and Tarantino, it's fine. I'm most compelled by 2012's Okami Kodomo. Perhaps because it's the only Hosoda I've seen that takes place entirely in one world, and not alongside some virtual reality, spiritual realm, or astral plane. The family dynamics are rich and complex, and the story keeps things simple, not trying to tackle more than it's meant to. I'd also be so bold as to say it's not far off from Miyazaki, specifically these two Miyazakis. As you might be able to tell, Hosoda's not my favorite from this list, but he's nonetheless worth mentioning. His films are beautiful, colorful, and engaging, and if you vibe with his style, then these stories have a lot of substance to offer. And hey, if it's good enough for the cisheads, it's fine. Really. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and tell me your thoughts in the comments. Who are some other anime directors that you really enjoy? Stay safe out there, wear a mask, and happy holidays.